Hello, welcome to Pensions in 10 with me, David Brooks, and my colleague Kelly Parsons. This week, we act like a proper news show and do breaking news about the change in leadership at the top of government. We look at the size of DC pension assets and what that might mean for their ongoing governance. And finally, we look at FAAs, and Kelly will tell you what that means in a minute. Okay, our first story is, breaking news for us. So we record this on Monday morning. It's just gone 9:30. Here we are, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed on a Monday morning. We record these, and Keir Starmer has just announced his resignation as Prime Minister and leader of the Labour Party. And obviously, there's some details in the news around how that's going to work for the next few months while he transitions his way out, and the Labour Party elect a new leader, and then, by definition, a new Prime Minister. Obviously, in the wake of Andy Burnham winning the Makerfield by-election, and so the even money probably is on Andy Burnham being our next Prime Minister. And then, being pensions people, we don't care about anything else, any other policies that he might do, about any other problems of the nation. We just start thinking about pensions. What's he going to do about pensions? So, what do we think he's going to do, Kelly? What do you think?
Well, I think there's mutterings that he'll keep the triple lock for the time being in place, which obviously, I think whoever, if he was to get rid of it all of a sudden, it would create havoc, wouldn't it? And, the world would turn against him. So I imagine that will remain in place for a while, but there is concerns about what the future holds with the triple lock and the fact that it's very expensive and what other things would have to give if they kept it in place for an ongoing period of time. So, yeah, I think from a pensions perspective, it's positive for the time being, but let's see what the future holds going forward and what will happen, because I believe that he has said that he would like to keep it in place at least for the time being anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, so, I think he's already had almost 2 pensions U-turns already. He went big on WASPI, didn't he? And he said he was going to...
Yes, he did, yeah.
He was going to say he was going to give them compensation. And then I think he read a bit more about it and realised, no, they're not going to get anything. And then he said about getting rid of the triple lock, I think. And then I think he had a second thought and realised it's such a political hot potato that coming in blazing, going, you're going to get rid of the triple lock will make a lot of voters nervous. We know the grey vote is a big vote, and so upsetting those people is unlikely. So, yeah, like you, I've seen him say that he's going to probably keep it for the remainder of this parliament, so until the next general election. And I have a sneaking suspicion, given some noises around most of the parties, that the triple lock isn't really seen as a sustainable policy for the long term. We have a pensions commission, obviously, which will come through, and we have the Susie Morrissey review of state pension age. So we've got a few things kicking around, so there's no need to make knee-jerk decisions now. But I suspect, in the backdrop of those things, and a little bit of a mini consensus, at least between the major parties, as we can call them that these days, but Labour and Conservatives, I think that we'll see them both come out and say the triple lock has served its purpose and can stop, and we'll replace it with, I think, a double lock. So it will be a 2.5% base and then wage growth or something like that. And that will just kind of ease the pressure, I think, a little bit on that triple lock, because it is this ratcheting effect over the years. But we'll see. That's kind of where my feeling is. But and we'll keep an eye on who's going to be our next Prime Minister. Okay, next we're going to look at some figures from the Pensions Commission report that have been pulled out. Basically saying, I'm just going to read this quick so I get it right, saying that DC pension assets in the UK are set to reach 1 trillion and overtake DB scheme assets by 2031. So, and a huge number, obviously, a huge number of our money that's stuck away for our futures. So, Kelly, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I had to Google what trillion was, 12 zeros, by the way. It's massive. Yeah, it is. Lots. Yeah, it's lots and lots. So
it's Elon Musk-sized numbers, isn't it? I mean, that's why.
Yes, he's been a topic of conversation this weekend, hasn't he? Yeah. But yeah, the thing that I find fascinating about this, or really of interest, is the fact that it is potentially going to be very soon where DC assets are going to be bigger than DB assets going forward. And it kind of made me think more about, well, what does this actually mean to members ultimately, and then also employers? And should there be a bigger onus really on employers and what they should be doing for their members? Because at the moment, as we know, the requirement for DC governance is not a legal requirement. You know, DB obviously is a serious level of governance wrapped around it. And it's like, well, do we need to be doing more for the members with this? And also the other thing that came out of this as well that kind of worried me a little bit is that the overall amount of money that was going to be held in pension assets is decreasing. Because there's obviously, we're in that zone where members are, you know, they're still retiring with DB assets and obviously helping with them for retirement and their adequacy, etc. But we're getting to that point as well. We're turning the corner when the DC assets and DB assets are reducing overall, potentially in the next like 5-10 years. So it's like, well, are members paying enough in? Which obviously a lot of the members aren't, and we know that. So okay, yeah, it's positive for the DC market, the fact that the numbers are ever increasing, but it's also slightly worrying in the fact that in 10 years' time, potentially the amount of assets completely under management is less than it is today currently. So, David, there's been some government announcements about flexible apportionment arrangement, or FAA regulations, following the landmark transfer of the Stagecoach Group pension scheme to Aberdeen. Do you want to just give us a bit of an overview of what this actually means and what it looks like, please?
Yes. I'm glad you said that phrase, because I can say FAA now, because that's what that stands for. So an FAA. Yes, so the Stagecoach Aberdeen deal was where Stagecoach transferred their £1.2 billion pension scheme to Aberdeen to look after under the I'll prove I can do it, a flexible apportionment arrangement, which is basically a methodology that was created in 2012 to allow schemes to be transferred between employers. And this was really designed around schemes with employers that are in distress, and you want to try to protect the pension scheme by moving it from a weak employer to a strong employer. And in this case, we were going from a strong employer to an even stronger employer, and with some upside for members and all these sorts of things. And so this is something to be applauded in many ways, because it's a word we don't use in pension very often, proper innovation. They've taken something, they've seen there's this arrangement, we can use this, and we can move this scheme on, and it's an alternative to buyouts, alternative to doing a super fund. So it's something new, something novel. But I think there was some nervousness around, from the regulator, I suspect, and within government, that this arrangement has been used. And if you're using this, you can pretty much do it on your own. You don't need any regulatory approval. There's a process to go through to use it, but that's pretty much it. And so the government is basically saying, right, we need to have a little pause with this and have a look and make sure we're not creating a Wild West. We're not going to create a system where there's going to be some bad actors could take advantage of this and have some other outcomes that may not be good for members in the long term. That could lead to regulatory embarrassment and also issues with the regulator in government. So what they're basically saying is they're going to review the flexible apportionment arrangement system, perhaps put some further guardrails around it, things like bringing the regulator in an early stage if you're going to do this, to make sure the regulator can see these deals as they're happening rather than finding out pretty much towards the end. So there's a framework around super funds, there's an established framework around buyout. I think there just needs to be a framework around these as well. I think some people are looking at it in two different ways as well. There's one way of looking at this as like being a potential stifling of innovation if you start adding too much in, too many bells and whistles that employers and potential sponsors taking on these schemes don't want to do these deals anymore, so they become too expensive or too risky. But in other ways, some people think it's a good thing just to create some sort of framework and some kind of credibility around these things and protect any anti-embarrassment. So we'll see how it turns out. We'll see what the regulation might look like. I suspect it'll take a long time before we get anything formal, but we'll see what the sort of what the regulator comes up with to create a sort of a system in the meantime, an interim system, again like we have with the super funds. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, thank you for joining us this week for the latest episode of Pensions in 10. If you see us on LinkedIn, please give us a like and subscribe if you've got this far. I should start doing this at the start to make people do it. But yes, like and subscribe. Also, if you happen to want these in your inbox rather than having to go on LinkedIn, you can subscribe from our website and watch them on there as well. So any way you want to get at our information, you can do so in the way that best suits you. And we look forward to seeing you next time.